Whoa, 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 bop.
What's up YouTube? Chris Bandy here. In this series, I'm going to show you how to understand jazz harmony. This tutorial focuses on harmonic features, analysis, and labeling. It does not focus on progressions or performance techniques, although I might make tutorials for those concepts later on. In addition, I teach jazz piano, theory, and composition lessons in person and online, so email me if you are interested. If you have any questions about this video, please check the description before commenting. Thanks to the Coldest Water Bottle Company for sponsoring this series. This 21-ounce sports bottle is solid and sturdy, keeps your drinks cold, floats on water so you don't lose it, has a rubber grip and a handle, is odor resistant, and fits in basically all cup holders. It has been perfect for me every time I go out of the house, and they have 12 different bottle types and a bunch of other products. The brand has over 8,000 5-star reviews, and they offer full refunds if you aren't satisfied. Pick up a Coldest Water bottle today by clicking the link in the description, and use the promo code BANDY to get 10% off your entire order. Alright, let's get into the series. Now that we know the 6 features of a chord, let's learn how to analyze a chord. In other words, if we have a bunch of tones, how do we know what chord they make together? I think the easiest way is to look for the first 5 features in the same order that we just learned them: root, quality, extensions, alterations, and bass. Let's do an example. Let's try to analyze the chord that is made by the tones A, E sharp, F sharp, B, and C. In other words, let's try to figure out what chord they make together. First, let's find the root and quality. To do this, just go through each of the tones one by one and pretend that it is the root. Then, if you can, calculate what the 3, 5, and 7 would be and see if it makes any sense. So let's do that with each of the 5 tones. First, pretend that A is the root, and see if that makes any sense. So now we look for the 3, 5, and 7. If A is the root, then the 3 has the letter C. Do we have the letter C in the chord? Yes, we have a C natural. So if the 1 is A, then the 3 is C. Now let's look for the 5. The 5 would have the letter E. Do we have the letter E in the chord? Yes, we have an E sharp. So if A is the root, C is the 3, and E sharp is the 5. Since C is a minor third above A, it is the minor 3, and since E sharp is an augmented fifth above A, it is the sharp 5. Now what quality is that? Well, there is no quality that has the minor 3 and sharp 5. So A is probably not a good choice for the root, since it would give us a chord without a proper quality. What about E sharp? Well, if E sharp is the root, the 3 should have the letter G. Do we have that? No. And the 5 should have the letter B. Do we have that? Yes. And finally, the 7 should have the letter D. Do we have that? No. So E sharp is not looking very promising, since it gives us a chord without a 3 or a 7. But maybe the chord is a triad with a sus quality. To see if it's a sus4 quality, let's look for the natural 4. If the root is E sharp, the natural 4 should be a perfect fourth above E sharp, which is A sharp. Do we have an A sharp? No. What about a sus2 quality? To see if it's a sus2 quality, let's look for the natural 2. If the root is E sharp, the natural 2 should be a major second above E sharp, which is F double sharp. We don't have that in the chord either, so E sharp is probably not a good choice for the root. Let's keep looking for a better root. What about B? Well, if B is the root, the 3 should have the letter D. We don't have that. And the 5 should have the letter F. We've got that since we've got an F sharp. And the 7 should have the letter A. We've got that as well, since we've got an A natural. So we've got both a 5 and a 7, but we don't have a 3. Maybe this is a 7th chord with a sus quality. Let's look for the natural 4. If the root is B natural, the natural 4 is E natural. But we don't have E natural in the chord, so it's not a sus4 quality. What about a sus2 quality? Let's look for the natural 2. If the root is B natural, the natural 2 is C sharp. But we don't have that either. At this point, we might suspect that this is a chord with an omitted 3, but that is so uncommon that looking for it should be more of a last resort. So let's try out the other 2 tones as possible roots before we start making an analysis with an omitted 3. What about C? Well, if C is the root, the 3 should have the letter E. Do we have the letter E in the chord? Yes, the chord has an E sharp. And the 5 should have the letter G. Do we have the letter G? No. So if C is the root, then E sharp is the 3, but there is no 5. Now, what's the interval between the root and the 3? In other words, the interval between C natural and E sharp. It's an augmented third, but we don't have any qualities that have an augmented third between the root and the 3. So C is probably not a good choice for the root, since it would give us a chord without a proper quality. What about F sharp? Well, if F sharp is the root, the 3 should have the letter A. The chord has an A natural, so that's a good sign. The 5 should have the letter C. The chord also has a C natural, so that's good. So we've got a full triad, and the notes are F sharp, A, and C. So we've got a root, a minor 3, and a flat 5. Now, what quality does that make? That quality is diminished. Finally, we've got a triad with a proper quality. Once we find a triad, we should look for a 7. Since the root has the letter F, the 7 will have the letter E. Do we have the letter E in the chord? Yes, we've got an E sharp. So our chord is not just a triad, it's a 7th chord. Once we've figured out that it's a 7th chord, we need to ask, what quality is it? Since E sharp is a major 7th above F sharp, it is the major 7 of the chord. And, as we saw earlier, if a 7th chord has a diminished triad and a major 7, its quality is diminished major. Now once we've figured out the root and quality, let's circle each of the tones we've used so far: F sharp, A, C, and E sharp. This will keep us from trying to use any of these tones again for the extensions or alterations. We don't want to be redundant. Second, let's find the extensions. The extensions would be the 9, 11, and 13 of F sharp. Let's look for each of these. Since the root is F sharp, the 9 would be any tone that has the letter G. That's not in the chord, so we don't have a 9. The 11 would be any tone that has the letter B. We've got a B natural, so the B natural is the 11 of the chord. And finally, the 13 would be any tone that has the letter D. That's not in the chord, so we don't have a 13. So the B natural is our only extension. Third, let's find the alterations. The first type of alteration is altered tones, so let's look for those first. Remember that an altered tone is a tone that has been moved from its natural position. Also remember that the only tones that can be altered are the 5, 9, 11, and 13. Now, this chord doesn't even have a 9 or 13, so we don't need to worry about those. But does this chord have a 5? Yes, the C is a 5th above F sharp. However, since the C is circled, we've already used it to figure out the root and quality. We're not going to reuse it as an alteration, so let's look for other alterations. We also have an 11, which is the B natural. Is it an altered tone? Since the B natural is a perfect 11th above the root, it is the natural 11. So no, the B natural is not an altered extension, it is just a natural extension. Now that we've analyzed all 5 tones in the chord, there's no need to keep looking for extra alterations. So let's move on to the next step. Fourth, let's find the bass. This is the easiest step of all. All you do is ask which note is in the bottom of the chord as it originally was. Our example chord had the A in the bottom, so the bass is A. Now, since the bass is different from the root, it is an alternate bass. If the bass were F sharp, it would be the same as the root, and would not be an alternate bass. So our mystery chord is F sharp diminished major 11 over A. Now, there are 2 additional names for this chord. The first additional name is what you get if you analyze the chord with A as the root. We tried this earlier and it didn't work, but maybe if we look at it differently, we can come up with something. Let's try it. So if A is the root, then E sharp is the sharp 5, F sharp is the natural 6, B is the natural 2 or natural 9, and C is the minor 3. To analyze chords like this, it's very helpful to just pretend for a moment that all the alterations have been replaced by their natural versions. This will give us a chord that is easier to analyze, and once we're done with that, we can just tweak the chord name to put those alterations back in. Let's try this on our chord. Since we've got E sharp as the sharp 5, let's pretend for a moment that it has been replaced by the natural 5, which is E natural. Now we have the minor 3 and the natural 5, which gives us an A minor triad. In addition, we have the added natural 2 and natural 6. As we learned earlier, this is a minor 6-9 chord. Now that we've analyzed the easier chord, we can put the sharp 5 back in. by indicating it as an alteration. So therefore, this chord could also be analyzed as A minor 6-9 sharp 5. As I mentioned, there is yet another name for this chord, and we will learn that later on. Occasionally, you'll need to respell certain tones in order to best analyze a chord. For example, take the following chord: C, E, A flat, B flat. If we tried to analyze this chord without respelling, we would get C7 flat 6 no 5. But that looks overly complicated. If we simply respell the A flat as a G sharp, we get C, E, G sharp, B flat. That can be analyzed as C augmented 7, which is a lot simpler.